Welcome back to the Trial of a Time Lord podcast, the podcast where
What?
the Doctor is always in.
Wait,
And we're here to talk about all things Doctor Who.
Ben. No, we're not. This is
We're not?
this. You remember this is a Gerry Anderson, but it's supposed to be a Gerry Anderson podcast. Yeah, we talk about Thunderbird, Stingray, Captain Scarlet. Those kinds of shows. This isn't. We're not suddenly doing a Doctor Who podcast.
Are you sure?
All right. Well, we kind of are this week. All right. I admit we are this week, but normally we're a Gerry Anderson. You do appreciate that, right?
Yeah. Well, Gerry Anderson made Doctor Who too, didn't he? Isn't it part of the Gerry Anderson universe? Doctor Who.
Oh dear. Well, you should know. You've read Gerry Anderson's biography, right?
Hey, funny you should mention that. I happen to have a copy of it sitting right here. It's called What Made Thunderbirds Go, at least in this edition. And if you want to support our show, whether it's about Doctor Who or Gerry Anderson, you can do so by checking out our Patreon, where I read an excerpt from this out-of-print book. And yes, it's very exciting, exclusively on patreon.com/securityhazard. And what's that? Is it getting chilly over there, Jack?
Well, you might say that, young Ben, but I couldn't put. That's my Tom Baker impression.
That was
got my scarf on.
That was beautiful.
Wasn't it lovely?
I felt a little tear welling up just from the nostalgia.
Right. Let's get into the show. Woo! Hello everyone, welcome back to the Security Hazard Show. It is a show that will never stop reversing the polarity of the neutron flow, despite how many times Brains tells us that Thunderbird 2 does not work that way.
Ooh, and I'm here with a man with a very long scarf. His name is Jack Knoll. Hello, Jack.
Hello. It's not as long as the real thing.
No?
But I think you'll agree. It's got all the right colours on it for a Tom Baker scarf, wouldn't you say?
It seems close to me, but I'm not, enough of a what's the British word for an anorak? Am I using that word correctly?
In this context, I assume you mean a Whovian.
I'm not enough of a Whovian to know exactly what the colors are and what order they go in, and
no,
so on
but people do, and that's why we love it. Well, what they do say about you, Ben, some say, is that when you regenerate, it's a bit like watching a Thunderbird's puppet turn into a Captain Scarlet puppet. You can imagine such a thing. It's sort of a big flash of light, and then your head sort of shrinks in size, and your arms and your legs grow a bit longer. It's kind of weird to.
Is it like a Tom Baker into Peter Davison regeneration, where I like turn white and like slowly like turn into different versions of myself, or is it one of the like?
I think that's what you look like when you go out in the sun. You just look very, very pale and start glowing.
I don't sunburn. I just bleach.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. That's my picture of it anyway, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, what's coming up on the show today, Jack? Surely it can't all be sun bleaching and super marination.
No. We've decided, for better or worse, we wanted to do a Doctor Who theme podcast today. But there are Gerry Anderson links, because actually the way this came about, we are going to be taking a look at the Doctor Who story City of Death. And there is the reason this came about in the first place was we were just talking off air. We were talking about episode ideas, and you came to me and said, well, on this particular day when we're broadcasting, it will have been David Graham's centenary. David Graham, lovely, Thunderbirds and Supermarination voice artist extraordinaire, would have been 100 years old. I think that was last week. He would have turned 100. sadly passed away before reaching that amazing landmark. And then this week is Catherine Schell's birthday, who of course was Maya in Space 1999. And as soon as you said those two names, David Graham and Catherine Schell, my brain immediately went, Doctor Who, City of Death.
That's the connection?
What we're doing.
It's Doctor Who, City of Death.
Exactly.
Both of them together. Although I don't think they actually have a scene together in this.
No, they
Am
don't.
Right
We'll get into that because this is our scene missing segment.
Roll the videotape.
What's funny about this, Jack, is that
I
can't actually see these intros as you play them.
Right.
And, I don't, because I'm in the show, I do what a lot of actors do. I don't watch the things that I'm in.
Right.
So I can't actually remember what the scene missing intro even looks like.
Well,
isn't that funny?
Has nothing to do with Doctor Who. That's the main problem with it.
I'll have to add some Daleks or something.
Exactly. Well, City of Death.
What can you say about it?
To begin, so
that hasn't been said.
It's a classic Doctor Who serial from 1979, Doctor Who's 17th season. Tom Baker's 6th season as the Doctor. Tom Baker, of course, one of the most celebrated actors to ever play the part. Memorable for his big booming voice and long colourful scarf, and for generally being quite aloof and very alien in the role.
Yes.
And yeah, I mean, we picked City of Death because of its Gerry Anderson connections in David Graham and Catherine Schell. There are more connections beyond that, which we will get into. But I think it's fair to say we also picked it because we both really, really, really like this story.
Yeah.
Is that fair to say, Ben?
I think that's more than fair to say. This is one of those that continually seems to pop up in like the fan favorites lists whenever there are polls conducted or just people talking about their Doctor Who stories ranked. This is always one of the top Tom Baker stories. I think that's pretty fair to say.
Yes.
And it's just one of those sort of landmark pieces of not just Doctor Who, but I think British television of the time in general.
Right.
I mean, it just has everything going for it.
Yeah.
In terms of like the writing and the direction and the cast and the locations and the high concept. Even the special effects are above the standard of what's standard for Doctor Who, I guess, of that time.
Yeah.
I think it looks a good bit better than normal.
Yeah. Or at the very least, there's nothing in there that's like distractingly like out of place. Obviously, it's always cheap and cheerful. I think that's for me. That's when Doctor Who is at its best. It's when it's cheap and cheerful. But there's a certain refinement. There's a certain awareness of limitations, so they don't necessarily push it too far. Therefore, the story is very definitely driven by the story itself. It's driven by the characters and what their motivations are, and those are all very clearly stated and plays out beautifully. What do you know of sort of the production history of this era of Doctor Who and how this particular story came about?
So I am not, being American, I guess, is sort of a handicap in being a Doctor Who fan. I say that sort of somewhat tongue-in-cheek. Some of the biggest Doctor Who fans are Americans, but I'm going to take a stab at it, and you can tell me where I'm wrong.
Yes.
So I think around this time, it's 1979, so Tom Baker has been the Doctor for, I'm going to say 5 seasons?
6 seasons. I said it at the top of the show.
No, never mind. Not even paying attention to my own show. Well, as I've already established, I don't even watch the show, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
Yeah, so he's been running for a long time, and he's somewhat at the top of his game. Like the ratings are very high. I think they peak around season 15. So the show is in a bit of transition.
Yes, in a sense that it's kind of it. So City of Death is the most highly rated Doctor Who story ever. It was watched by the most people, but there is a reason for that. It's because there was literally nothing else on at the time. ITV were on strike.
Oh,
so if you turned over the channel, all you got was a blank screen saying, "Sorry, no programs here today." So therefore, a lot of people watch Doctor Who instead. Well, it's funny because obviously it's always talked about. City of Death is always talked about as one of the highest, most watched episodes of all time. Well, that's the reason for it. It's kind of by accident.
And it's like when the guest speaker brags about how many people came to the thing at the school where attendance was mandatory.
Exactly.
Kind of like
that. Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. And I mean, certainly the opinion of Tom Baker, I think, was high. I think he was very much cemented in public consciousness as the Doctor, the definitive article, because it had been so long since John Pertwee or anyone previous. So, and I think Tom Baker very much viewed it that way as well. It's like, well, this was his show, his part. He was in control. The interesting thing about season 17 is this is where it kind of bleeds into a bit of opinion here, but I think it's an opinion generally shared by people, is that the rest of 17 surrounding City of Death is not necessarily that great. It suffers from a lot of what kind of that era of the show was suffering from, which was basically the costs to make the show were incredibly high. It's kind of the Doctor Who at its most cheap and cheerful, to the point where at the end of this series, of course, there was the infamous Sharda, which was the story that was never completed because of strikes again, but this time at the BBC. So it was a kind of turbulent time for Doctor Who in that it wasn't all just smooth sailing.
No.
But also I think there was a little bit of maybe Tom Baker's ego was hampering the production. He famously had issue with some of the scripts, particularly in this season. But the kind of saving grace of all of that, and what kind of particularly saved City of Death, was the script editor for this season, which was Douglas Adams.
Hey!
What do we know Douglas Adams from, Ben?
Well, Douglas Adams, of course, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But he's also a personal hero of mine for his saying that he loves deadlines. He loves the whooshing sound they make as they go by. Douglas Adams sort of cracked the code of writing professionally in that he wrote as little as possible.
Right.
And avoided the task of writing as much as possible, and somehow still managed to become one of the most beloved writers of his generation, I would argue.
Yes.
So
in terms of Doctor Who, much to that point, he had the gig script editing Doctor Who while he was also, I think, writing the first Hitchhiker's book, writing the second radio series of Hitchhikers, and I think developing the TV series as well. So all these things kind of fell on his lap at once, and
this is the most productive period of his life.
Yes. So he was definitely busy, and for City of Death, he wasn't supposed to be writing this story, but what happened was they had another script.
It says David Agnew. What's up with that?
David Agnew. Well, this is the thing. David Agnew is not a real person.
Oh.
No. It is a pseudonym used by the BBC on many different projects where basically they couldn't or wouldn't credit the script editor or the producer as being a script writer on the show because I think writers' unions or guilds or something like that would get upset about that.
It's specific rules about.
So in those situations, David Agnew, in inverted commas, was always commissioned to write the scripts.
Yeah, and I imagine that Douglas Adams contributing Shada to the season would have been his contribution to that season, and he wouldn't have been allowed to contribute more.
Possibly. I think that might have been another David Agnew situation there as well. Obviously, it was never finished, so it kind of didn't really come to anything. But in this case, they had a script by a previous Doctor Who writer called David Fisher.
Okay, a name I've heard before.
Right. I can't remember exactly which stories he'd written previously off the top of my head, but he had been a Doctor Who writer previously, and he wrote a story called The Gamble with Time, which featured a lot of the elements that you see in the finished City of Death.
Okay.
But his script turned out to not be workable. So, in the space of a long weekend, basically, Graham Williams, the producer, and Douglas Adams, possibly with director Michael Hayes as well, shut themselves away in Graham Williams' house for the weekend, drank a lot of coffee, and completely rewrote the script for City of Death, and made The Gamble of Time into City of Death.
And somehow created one of the most beloved Doctor Who serials of them all.
But doesn't that happen so often? All the things that come together by accident end up being the best.
It's better to be lucky than good, they say.
Yeah, exactly.
There's some element of that there.
Yeah. All that is to say that this was a period of Doctor Who where there was a lot of stuff up in the air being juggled around, kind of chaotic. Would be the word for it. It certainly wasn't the sort of it wasn't smooth sailing necessarily.
Yeah. Chaotic in Gerry Anderson's life at this time too, of course.
Yeah. Well, this is so. Yeah, this kind of ties us in nicely to thinking about Gerry Anderson and what was going on for him at the time, and just the nature of television itself, and how I would say Doctor Who and Anderson Productions are kind of coming at the same thing, but from two totally different directions.
Interesting. What do you mean by that? The same thing, but different directions.
Well, it's interesting.
You mean like the same genre?
Well, I mean, yes, certainly the same genre, but in terms of, first of all, just the way that they went about making their shows was obviously completely different. Gerry Anderson was like, I need the highest possible budget available, shooting on 35mm film. Everything has to look basically feature film quality.
Yeah.
Whereas Doctor Who, and indeed much of BBC television at the time, because of the nature of it being a publicly funded organization, it was like we have to get the most out of very little. And it's why I think so much more emphasis is put on who, when we talk about Doctor Who, we talk about who wrote it.
Yes.
What's the story about? All of that really drives it in a big way. If you don't have a good Doctor Who script, you're stuck.
Doctor Who.
You don't have Doctor Who. Whereas I think the Anderson shows almost the script is kind of a byproduct. We don't necessarily sit down and pore over the details of those scripts because they're
in a lot of cases we don't have them to hand, do we?
We don't have them to hand. And
the huge difference between being an Anderson fan and a Doctor Who fan is that the BBC archives saved like pretty much everything except the actual episodes about which they were pretty cavalier. Taping over some quite infamously.
Yes.
But a ton of the paper trail, the paperwork for the production survives. Whereas with the Anderson stuff, every time a new piece of paperwork comes to light, it's like, oh, we've discovered
it's a massive
something we didn't
revelation.
know.
Yeah, no, that's very true.
Because there's very little of that kind of stuff circulating.
Yeah,
in the
exactly.
Anderson fandom. So they're sort of opposites of each other, opposite ends of the same coin.
Yeah,
I guess they would have started. I mean, Doctor Who started a bit later.
Yeah. So Doctor Who, obviously, 1963. So let's see, what would Gerry Anderson have been doing at the time? Would have been
Fireball, Stingray, shooting Stingray.
Probably would have been shooting Stingray.
Wow.
Yeah, probably would have just made the sale to Lou Grade of the whole company and rolling in money.
And then over there at their, what was it, 5 p.m. slot, tea time slot?
Yeah,
Who.
Doctor Who. Doctor Who. It's important to think about the reason the two shows, or the two different types of making TV existed at that time.
Yes.
Doctor Who was fundamentally created to fill a slot in between.
Right.
I think it was in between the sport and some other teen show at the time.
Was it like a
just
game
like
show?
we need something to kind of bridge that gap. I think it was Jukebox Jury? Yeah, I think it was something like that.
All right.
So they needed something to bridge that gap, and so therefore Doctor Who came about because Sidney Newman had sort of an idea, but other people it's a very organic kind of process where the show just sort of materialized out of nothing. Whereas, but it's sort of the collaboration of different BBC departments and things like that. It's all very. I really appreciate the structure when you read about the history of the BBC and stuff like that. The structure of it all and who you had to go to in order to get this done and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Which is totally at odds with what Gerry Anderson was doing at the time, which was going for a morning 7:30 a.m. meeting with Lou Grade. And Lou Grade famously saying things like, if you want to make a series about that light bulb,
right,
I'll back it. All of that sort of stuff.
It's like
because
deals done over coffee and handshakes and cigars versus literally just memos going back and forth between departments.
Exactly.
Totally different.
It was a very different way because it was commercial television, where ultimately the end goal was people will watch it, therefore will make money. Yeah.
Do you feel like these two things, though, like classic Doctor Who and the classic Anderson shows, do you feel like they kind of exist now in the same space in people's minds? Do you feel like they're both sort of cult telly?
Yeah, exactly. Cult TV. People. I think people definitely associate probably Dalek Mania in particular, and possibly because it shared a TV21 comic with the Anderson shows. The Daleks had their own comic in there, so. I think people definitely hold them sort of in the same regard, even though
and the Century 21 record album,
so
even more connections. But there's
just
no Daleks in City of Death.
No, there aren't. But you say there's no Daleks in City of Death.
Oh,
voice of the Daleks, original voice of the Daleks, David Graham, is in this story.
He certainly is.
Playing Professor Kerensky?
Yeah, so do we want to kind of get into his performance, his character?
Yeah, let's dig into some of these details. So, David Graham.
Connections.
David Graham. I mean, first of all,
what can we say about David Graham?
I'm fairly sure that this is the first time ever that I saw David Graham on screen. Obviously, I'd heard his voice growing up in all of the Anderson shows, but watching City of Death for the first time, probably aged, I think about 10, probably I was when I first saw it. That was my first time ever seeing David Graham on screen. And the great thing about it is that he is doing a voice, his sort of vaguely Eastern European voice, vaguely, that he would do for several Supermarionation characters as well. guest roles in different shows. So it's great because it's instantly, even though David Graham was a master of doing all these different voices, it's still recognizably David Graham, one of David Graham's voices.
It definitely is.
So if you shut your eyes during one of his scenes with Tom Baker or whatever in this story, you do sort of feel like, in a way, you're transported into a Super Mario Nation show just because the character has that quality about him. Slightly larger than life. It's very much an exaggerated stereotype of a, mad professor type character.
Yeah, it is sort of a Super Mario Nation type character.
Yeah.
When I watched this story this time around, I've been introducing my wife to classic Doctor Who. So I've been doing my own adventures with the wife in space.
Oh, yes.
And she recognized him, but couldn't quite figure out who it was. So there was that, that recognition just from the voice, I think.
Yeah.
Triggered. Oh, that's David Graham. And then once she realized, she was like, oh, this is sort of the same sort of character that he might play in an Anderson show.
Right.
Where it's like, it's really not that big of a departure from, a character in like Stingray. If a mad scientist character was needed, that would be the sort of voice. Or I guess Fireball XL5 would be a better example for mad scientists.
Yeah, possibly.
Or Supercar.
But what I love, because I was going to say, because he's on screen, obviously. What I particularly enjoy in this story is how he physically portrays the role as quite small and hunched over and downtrodden, and when he's standing there next to Tom Baker, who's obviously tall and a very big person, to see little David Graham there being so wonderfully, he's so likable in this because he's so adorable and so sort of as I say, downtrodden, and he's at the mercy of well, I was going to say Scarleone, but really it's Scarra. Yeah. And I just love the way he fits into those scenes is really, really nice. I think he physically embodies the role really, really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you get a sense of, when you see him act physically, you get the sense that he's a total performer. He's totally committed to and you can imagine him in the studio in front of a microphone doing the bits for the puppet shows, but just getting just as into it as he would.
Yeah, I can imagine him being very, very animated, and
it gives you a fuller picture of what it must have been like to do the voices for Thunderbirds or any of those.
Yeah.
And
he plays so well. He plays so well with Tom Baker. There's a good chemistry there between them, and with Julian Glover as well, who plays Scareth, the villain of the whole piece. And
Should we talk about Julian Glover now?
Julian Glover, yes.
Skipping
another. We're skipping around our list a little bit, but he also has an Anderson connection. Perhaps the slightly more limited one, but Ben, what is Julian Glover's Anderson connection?
Well, Julian Glover wears, I think it's fair to say, the most amazing costume in all of Space 1999 when he appears as a guest star in Alpha Child, which is a year one episode of Space 1999, and he gets to wear sort of they're like silver shorts with sort of straps over top, sort of a onesie kind of thing, and it's just one of those 70s like Flash Gordon influenced costumes that you're just like, man, oh man, what a thing, what an absolutely legendary costume.
In a rare instance where his Doctor Who costume, by comparison, much less embarrassing.
Do you know if so in this story he reveals his true face at a certain point in the story, his true face, which is actually an alien face.
Yeah.
Do you know if he's the man in the mask?
I believe he is the man in the mask. Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's whoever it is. If it's a double, a stunt double, it's a very similar height and build.
Yeah. No, I'm pretty sure it's the same. I'm pretty sure it's Julian Glover in there. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
But yeah, what do we think about the Jaggeroth alien face in this? I love it.
It's one of the weaker elements in terms of when he pulls off his real face. Obviously, spoilers ahead.
Right.
You've never seen City of Death. What are you doing?
Yeah.
He pulls off his human face to reveal his alien face beneath. The alien mask sort of moves artificially. So there's a certain element of phoniness to it, of course. It doesn't really fool you. But as a piece of design, I really do like it.
Yeah.
Another cool thing about watching this with my wife for the first time is one of her things that she studies is ancient Egyptian culture.
All right.
So when they rolled out the hieroglyphs, she actually reads hieroglyphs.
All right.
And I was like, so when you're reading these ancient hieroglyphs, did you ever come across a Jaggeroth? Hoping that she might say, and she said no. So
no. Oh, that's a shame.
Sorry to disappoint.
Yeah.
Maybe.
No, I think for me, I love it. I think it's so Doctor Who. It's one of those things where if you were to ask the average person on the street to describe Doctor Who, someone who probably hardly ever watched it, they would say, oh, well, it's probably like a guy takes his face off and suddenly there's a green bug-eyed monster with one eye underneath. I think it is, when I want to use the phrase classic with sort of like a capital C, classic Doctor Who. It's like that. That's kind of one of those things that is like Doctor Who epitomized, where it's like one moment they're a suave, sophisticated aristocrat living in Paris in their fancy house, and then the next second he rips his face off and he's a green squiggly alien thing. I think that is
iconic,
perfect,
so to speak.
Yeah,
to use the buzzword.
Exactly.
Now, how do you think Gerry Anderson felt about such a thing in Doctor Who?
I mean, I was gonna say that sort of by comparison, well, obviously those effects are really beneath an Anderson production and they're so cheap and whatever.
Theoretically.
But actually, when you look at some of the aliens that turn up in Space 1999 in second season, certainly,
there's definitely some better.
They're not much better, really.
I think a lot of what makes a makeup effect like the mask, I don't think the issue is the mask itself. I think it's the studio lighting is sort of unforgiving. Yes. And there's sort of like limited time that they're dealing with, so they didn't have time to do little things that would have make it come to life in terms mostly in terms of lighting and presentation. Yeah. So I think it's really more Space 1999 presented things in a more polished manner, but the basic techniques that in play were the same.
But then the problem with that is, and the reason why certain scenes in Space Year 2 are so laughable, is because you have this really polished look that is totally at odds with the rubber monster running around looking very obviously fake. Like, at least in Doctor Who, a bad-looking monster kind of fits with the overall feel of the piece.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like when in Fireball XL5 or the like, when a spaceship sort of explodes and you see the wires and you're like, well, but that's okay because it fits with the mise-en-scène of Fireball XL5.
Right.
It's all part of that universe where everything's on wires, including the people. Yeah. So it's like, as long as it works within its own remit, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Julian Glover is a terrific actor. I love all of his work. I've never seen a bad Julian Glover performance.
Right.
It's just one of my favorites. He always brings such gravitas to the most. I mean, I would find saying dialogue, some of the dialogue that he says here, to be incredibly challenging to make convincing. But when he says, "I am Skaroth, the last of the Jaggeroth," which is like, it sounds like you're saying, gobbledygook, like you're reading the ingredients off a back of a dog food packet or something.
Right.
but he reads it as if it's like,
lovely tasty bowl of Jaggeroth for you. Fido.
I am the last of the ancient kings. I am, the last of this proud race. And you believe it. You believe it because he does the work to make it feel like it's a real thing.
But that's also because I think the real strength of this script, and probably why it was rewritten in the way that it was by Douglas Adams, is it's so kind of simple in a way. It's really straightforward. His character's motivation is very clear. It's very obvious. At no point do you feel lost in, even though it is quite a complex, I hate to use the phrase, but timey-wimey story.
There's quite a bit of time travel business,
right, where they go back and forth, and is this Mona Lisa a fake, or isn't it? All this sort of business, which we'll probably get into as well. It has a potential to be quite complex, but actually what the characters are doing and why they are going from place to place is very, very straightforward. And therefore, I'm sure Julian Glover and the other actors involved were like, yep, I understand what I'm doing here. There's
a clear through line,
juicy part to play. So just was able to kind of get totally on board with it, I think.
Yeah. Kind of similar to the role that he plays in Alpha Child, in the sense that he's, in both stories, he's one of the last of his kind. He's got a ship full of his people. I think in Alpha Child, it's like 2 or 3 ships full of his people. He's trying to protect them. He's trying to manipulate Earth people in order to kind of get protection for them. So it's sort of a similar kind of part. Also played with a great deal of like confidence.
Yes.
I think it's fair to say that Jaggeroth is a very confident villain. Does not believe that he's going to fail.
I mean, he has it all though, doesn't he? He's,
Yeah. He's sort of like a Bond villain. He's just got like all the gadgets on his side.
Wow.
He's got his lair and his secret bases.
Did Julian Glover play a Bond villain?
He did. I'm struggling to think of which film
it's going to expose the... I don't know why I brought that up, because I know next to nothing about James Bond. So.
Yeah, I think it's one of the John Glenn ones from the 80s.
Okay.
Someone in the chat will know.
I'm sure someone in the chat will let us know. But meanwhile, we talk about Count Scarlioli. We should talk about the Countess, played by Catherine Schell, who, of course, we all know as Maya from Space 1999. And this is really nice. It's really nice to see her in this story. Simpsons Clips 24 says Julian Glover played Aris in For Your Eyes Only. So,
thank you, Simpsons Clips 24. You've always got my back. Thank you, sir.
Lovely. But yes, Catherine Schell. Wonderful to see her in this.
Yes.
Out of the the alien makeup and stuff that she wore as Maya, playing a character who honestly not too dissimilar to a sort of Lady Penelope or a Contessa di Contini type of character.
Yes.
Very, very similar sort of vibe to that, where it's this young, sophisticated lady going about town with her cigarette holder,
Yes.
all the way out to here. Cigarette is as far away from her face as possible through the whole thing.
That's true.
But yeah, she just oozes elegance, I think, in that role.
She does. It's sort of similar to... She's in The Return of the Pink Panther, which is one of my favorite roles of hers, where she's opposite Christopher Plummer. Mm-hmm. And they both play a pair of jewel thieves.
Right.
And so this is sort of similar to that role in that she's sort of like, it's sort of like that sort of glamorous era where she's playing like, the jewel thief, but not like your common jewel thief, like an aristocratic sort of high flying jet setting, long cigarette holder smoking jewel thief. And that's the character that she plays here. It's a very,
right.
it's very much of the time. You don't see as much of that now as you probably should.
No. But things like she goes over to the bookshelf and just whips out a draft of Hamlet and things like that is just lovely. Just clearly someone who what's really nice about her is that she's incredibly shallow.
Yes.
And doesn't and chooses to ignore a lot of the very obvious questions that surround what is her husband up to.
Yes.
She doesn't know about what's going on in the cellar with the time machine and all of that stuff. She's no idea. She's just
ladies,
I enjoy having nice things, so
ladies, if your man is working on a secret project down in the cellar and he won't tell you what it is, he's probably recording a Gerry Anderson or Doctor Who podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And if he's stealing Mona Lisas in order to fund that podcast, then maybe it's more than a podcast.
Yeah. Yeah. Our podcast is not funded by Mona Lisas, so please do support our Patreon.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/security hazard.
Or if anyone happens to have a spare genuine Mona Lisa knocking about that they want to donate, feel free. We'll take it. I'll hang it up. I'll replace the investigator poster.
Wow, you would do that?
No, of course I wouldn't. Signed by Shane Rimmer, for goodness sake. Of course I'm not replacing it with a genuine Mona Lisa.
Much more valuable. Yeah. All the Mona Lisas have "This is a fake" written under the paint anyway, so.
Right. Well, Shane Rimmer's autograph definitely worth more than that.
I agree.
Anyway,
yes. Yeah, Catherine Schell, always a touch of class to her performances. I forget how little screen time she has. I feel like she's present in this episode for a lot. But in interviews and things, Catherine Schell's always been reluctant to talk about this episode because she doesn't remember it very well.
Yeah,
which, I mean, as fans, we're always like, "Oh, how could you forget that you were in one of the most popular, most watched Doctor Who serials of all time?" But then you watch the serial and you're like, "It was probably just a few days' work for her." And then
I mean, she would have been basically there for I think at that point, Doctor Who was basically doing 2 studio sessions per story. Maybe 2 or 3 days of shooting plus rehearsals. Obviously, she wasn't involved in any of the location filming in Paris. Neither was Julian Glover. Let's take a brief pause from going through our list and talk about the location filming, which again, when you talk about obviously for Gerry Anderson, he just had The Protectors, where it was like location filming around Europe was kind of almost uninspiring and uninteresting by that point. They did it so much. Whereas for Doctor Who, this was a big first. This was the first time Doctor Who had ever gone and done a foreign location shoot. So they hopped over the channel. Yeah, the very, very first time.
Amazing.
And it's shot on 16mm film, as so often was the case for Doctor Who and indeed BBC TV in general. If you had stuff shot on videotape in the studio, typically any location material or any kind of intense action sequences would be shot on film, and that's kind of part of the language, I suppose, of watching archive TV, is that hop between videotape and film is very noticeable, but all part of the charm. Yes. But no, they're in Paris for real, but it very much feels like there's just a cameraman following Tom Baker and Lalla Ward and Tom Chabon around the streets of Paris as they just sort of run around and figure out the story kind of as they're going. It's great.
Do bits and bobs. A lot of it's supported very well by Dudley Simpson's score.
Yes,
I'm
lovely.
Notoriously critical of Dudley Simpson's scores.
Oh,
I'm not a huge Dudley Simpson fan. I just find a lot of his choices to be sort of questionable. know, as far as like, why did you put that there? But sometimes the non sequitur works for me. It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
You know, they're like, I don't know, the tone of the music is sort of like, how would you describe it? How would you describe how the music
bright
feels?
And slightly frantic? It very much, it just matches well with the scene where there's sort of the elegance of being in Paris and what a romantic, what a grand setting, but also the fact that Paris itself is basically just a massive traffic jam.
Yeah.
And you've got, you know, Tom Baker and Ella Ward running through the streets, nearly getting run over.
Yeah.
The music captures that perfectly. The sort of the elegance juxtaposed with the chaos.
Yeah. It's not like,
that's it.
When I think of Paris, I think of it, you know, in the nighttime, sort of like, you know, dancing along the Riviera. Yes. You know, that's sort of, I don't know, those images, more like the Perils of Penelope Paris.
Right.
Where it's like,
very,
you know,
romanticized
accordions
and
playing.
Calm and, you know, sleepily enjoying a midnight meal at a cafe somewhere.
But this is like Paris, like during a cloudy, drizzly day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
which is what it's actually like.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like a bit of the real Paris infused with the kind of romanticized Paris, and it does kind of work.
Yeah.
And
that's because you've got, you know, the Doctor and Romana talking about, Paris has a bouquet and all of this sort of stuff where they do romanticize it a little bit. And that's a theme that runs through the whole story, is about sort of like art and just the pleasantries of life counterbalanced with the practicalities of life, I suppose, as well.
Yeah. The sort of like not to get too deep into the themes of the story, but the kind of juxtaposition of, well, all of life is sort of a cosmic accident with well, look how meaningful and beautiful life can be.
Yeah.
It's sort of the point of it. And it's those two things balancing each other out.
Which is what Douglas Adams does so beautifully all the time anyway. So
his specialty.
Yeah.
One of my favorite like Parisian moments in this, I think it's in part 1. Romana and the Doctor are sitting at a cafe having a chat.
Yeah.
And in the background, a car has stalled, and someone is just pushing the car out of the street.
I didn't notice that. That's amazing. But yeah, that's
exactly the sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can. I've described it so our audio listeners, that's what you get. But I'll see if I can find an image real quick.
Well, yeah. But yeah, no, I love all of but even if you get into the behind the scenes information about when they went to do all that location filming and stuff, like the cafe that they sit outside of is not the cafe that they were supposed to go and film, because they turned up and it happened to be a public holiday. So even though they had arranged to be in this cafe, it was not open that day. So therefore they had to go and shoot somewhere else. So again, all of this kind of chaos that's going on behind the scenes, I feel like,
what would it have been like? Would they have known who Tom Baker was in Paris in 1979? Would he have been a recognizable figure?
Who knows? I don't know. I wouldn't have thought so, but you can imagine him just sort of standing out. But it's one of those things where he would have stood out and people would have gone, that's odd that he's running around in a big long scarf. But also probably wouldn't have questioned it either.
Sure. I mean, it's a big city. You see bohemian type people all the time.
Exactly. So yeah, it's one of that's the lovely thing about it, is the Doctor and Romana simultaneously, they fit in, but they also really don't fit in.
Right.
Isn't that lovely? Right. It's kind of a good mishmash of things where that's why I feel like the whole time watching this is sort of everything feels so effortless, even though it's constantly challenging you, and particularly the Doctor is constantly has something witty to say in counter argument to whatever Scaroth or what anyone's saying. There's always a line that just comes punching in at you, and so you're constantly on your toes, keeping up with the sparring that is going on in the dialogue. It's really,
it is
rich.
A really strong story for dialogue,
and some of the dialogue was improvised by the cast as well. Like, yes, oh yeah, very much so. Which was something that I think Tom Baker was always campaigning for, particularly later on in his run of Doctor Who, because he didn't necessarily have the highest opinion of the writers. He would ask to write his own dialogue. But I think in this case, he had enough respect for Douglas Adams and what he was doing that really all his improvisations do is enhance what's there rather than trying to actively change it or do something different.
It's almost like a band at their like classic period where everybody's sort of found their groove and everybody knows who's the songwriter and this is what the bass player does in the band. This is what the drummer does in the band. And the chemistry has just like hit that point where it's working really well. Here's the moment I alluded to earlier. You can see a woman pushing a car out of the way.
Amazing.
This shot. And it just captures the sort of like, this is like Paris as it is, not Paris sort of whitewashed, glamorized.
Right, exactly. But you wonder whether that's an intentional choice, where they were like, no, we want to keep it kind of rough and ready like that. That's the way we want it. Or whether it was literally a case of, we don't have time to do another take.
Exactly. It feels very guerrilla, which is something I think the Anderson shows sometimes miss, is that they feel, because they're so polished and produced, it sometimes is hard to catch those moments of spontaneity, the happy accidents that happen. So it's, and that still happens in the Anderson shows, but just in kind of a different way, more behind the scenes than in front of the camera.
Right, exactly.
So it's an interesting contrast. It's interesting to contrast Doctor Who with the Anderson shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Well, since we're on the topic of Paris, let's talk about some of the other Anderson shows that are set in Paris. Because why not? That's where we're at right now. Thunderbirds has The Perils of Penelope and Alias Mr. Hackenbacker, which again, nighttime, the Eiffel Tower twinkling away in the background, fireworks in the sky, very polished, everything's neat and tidy. You don't get anyone coming along in the background or shot pushing their car or anything like that going on.
No, I can't recall a scene like that.
No.
There is also not an Anderson thing, but Anderson related. Paris plays a large role in Team America World Police.
That's true.
If you remember that, but it's
of course I do. Of course I do.
The opening of Team America World Police takes place in Paris, so
the
Perils of Penelope.
Yeah, that's lovely.
Sense. What do you think of those? Where do those episodes rank for you in Thunderbirds? The Parisian sort of.
Well, I think in both of those cases, what's interesting about it is that they're very Penelope led. You know, Penelope is the type of character that will be at home in Paris.
Penelope.
Exactly. Yes. Very posh, very sophisticated. Yeah, much like the Countess Scarlioni in this.
Yes.
And it's interesting to me that at the end of Perils of Penelope, when Alan is kind of thrust into that world, he doesn't quite fit. Because he's a good all-American boy and doesn't know what to do with himself and doesn't know how to enjoy himself properly in that kind of setting, which is
quite true.
Just great. I like that kind of, just those different energies at play there. Yeah. What about you? What do you think of those episodes?
I tend to rate Perils of Penelope a little bit higher than Alias Mr. Hackenbacker. I like the influence of the movie serials, the kind of Perils of Pauline. Pearl White, I think, is the serial movie star that they were referencing.
Right.
So those kinds of things that worked their way into the culture via the Perils of Penelope and Penelope Pit Stop and things like that. Yeah, I'm very, very fond of old movie serials, so I like that aspect of it. Whereas Alias Mr. Hackenbacker, sort of a vestigial organ in between like Model Spy and Captain Scarlet and Perils of Penelope, where it doesn't quite do either story successfully.
Right.
But it's always nice to have some brains about, it's a good character. Sort of didn't get enough screen time, I think.
Yeah. I don't like a lot of Series 2 brains, though. I think they maybe missed the mark a little bit with the character. Kind of in the same way. You probably think I'm deliberately finding parallels, but I swear these are just kind of coming off the top of my head. But very similar to Kerensky, I feel like Brains is to start with, in that he's quite shy and kind of keeps himself to himself. And whereas in Series 2 of Thunderbirds, Brain suddenly becomes quite confident and quite cocky and is sort of like, oh yeah, I can go and drink champagne with Tintin and at the Starlight Roof and at the end of Alias Mustaka back. I'm like, no, that doesn't. He's not a romantic lead or anything like that. That's not the point of the character. That's what the Tracy brothers are there to do. You know? It's that all feels very odd. And when he becomes the hero at the end of Lord Parker's Holiday as well, I just don't like that version of Brains. I prefer him sort of like in Some Probe, where he's a bit more unsure of himself or a bit more ambiguous and can't quite express what it is he wants to express. So
not to worry, they'll put him back in his place for Thunderbird 6.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Yes, in quite a big way. But yeah, a couple of other Paris Anderson episodes. We have Seek and Destroy from Captain Scarlet. Where it's barely a factor, to be honest, but it's simply simply expressing the fact that destiny comes from there. But that's about it, really. It doesn't feature much otherwise. And then this is where I'm going to need your help, because we have, of course, some Protectors episodes that were shot in Paris just a few years before City of Death would have been shot in Paris. So we have the episodes Disappearing Trick, One and One Makes One, and Your Witness. Could you tell me anything about those episodes? Because I have probably watched them, but I couldn't distinguish them. Really.
The only one that I don't recall the storyline of off the top of my head is One and One Makes One. Disappearing Trick is quite a memorable one because Darren Nesbitt is the guest star. And Darren Nesbitt always gives a memorable turn in anything he does.
Right.
So that is quite a good one. Highly recommend that.
Yeah.
Your Witness is slightly less familiar. It's one of those protecting a young lady situations, if I recall.
Okay.
Nothing,
I guess
nothing
my
terribly memorable.
My point is how
scenes.
Yeah, I was going to say, how well do those... I don't feel like... In several cases in the Protectors, the locations feel so secondary to the story. It could sort of be anywhere, which is so strange considering that's such a core appeal of the whole series. Globe-trotting and everything. But so
certainly a story like
Disappearing
Trick, it's not terribly important where it takes place. Your Witness has more of a Parisian vibe where there's some evening parties and there's some nightlife stuff that happens, some sort of like Paris after dark. There's like some gangster activities and a shootout in a parking garage, I think. So they take a bit more advantage of the city in that episode, and it plays more into the story. Sometimes, rarely the aspect of the location will play a role. I'm thinking of Wham, which I just watched in memory of the dearly departed Prentice Hancock, where the specific location was part of what made that story work.
Right.
And there's also a Year One episode that takes place in Prague specifically.
Okay.
That played the political situation of the Czechoslovakia, as it would have been, I think, at that time. Plays a role in the story because it's kind of east. It's a very Cold War driven episode.
Right.
So sometimes it does happen, but you're quite right. A lot of them are very
They
generic.
certainly don't go, right, we're going to start the episode at the top of the Eiffel Tower, then we're going to run over to the Louvre, then we're going to, sit in a chateau, then we're going to go back to the Louvre. Nothing quite so blatant, I suppose.
That's quite right. Yeah, it's a much more of a, I don't know. Yeah, and as you say, a lot of like generic kind of stories that feel like they were just lifted from, oh, this could also work for the Saint or the Avengers or Danger Man or any of that could just as easily. Whereas this, it's hard to imagine what shows could have taken on this plot from that time, if any.
Right, exactly.
It's highly specific to Doctor Who, this plot.
Yeah, but this is where, it's interesting because Doctor Who does do foreign location filming several times after this, but never in quite the same way. This story is so integral to being set in Paris is such an important part of it. You couldn't do it anywhere else. Whereas there are stories like later on, like the Two Doctors with Colin Baker and Patrick Troughton, where they just decided, we'll just film some of this in Seville in Spain.
Right.
And it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's just like thrown in there as well. We could do this nice thing to add production value. So, I'm glad that for this story, they sort of had the idea first of like, let's go to Paris. Let's do a story about Paris and then go from there. So I think that's really important to why this story works so well. Right, let's see. There are a couple of other sort of very flimsy Anderson connections that I think we should go through quickly, and probably spend more time actually talking about City of Death rather than the Anderson connections. But Tom Chadbourne, who plays Duggan in this story, was also in the Protectors episode Chase, which I do remember fairly well. Is that the one where Robert Vaughn is being chased through the woods? Is that one? Or am I mixing them up? Oh gosh, I'm probably mixing them up. But anyway, Duggan is such a beautifully Douglas Adams character in this story.
Oh man.
He's just if there's a problem, he's gonna punch it, and it's so broad, but it works for some reason.
It does, and I think it's sort of down to the writing.
Yeah,
where they sort of are constantly. He's constantly just knocking people out and smashing things, and they're constantly chastising him for it in a clever way.
Yeah,
and it's sort of. I think the Doctor Who thing, and as with like a lot of this kind of era of television where there's like, like the classic Batman series is famous, for example, for not having a gun. Like he didn't carry a gun. Steed doesn't carry a gun in the Avengers with some notable exceptions. So there's sort of like classical television's relationship to violence, where they were like, well, we don't want to depict violence, but we have to create drama and threat and move the story along.
Yeah. Well, particularly in this story. In this story, because he does carry a gun, and there is that wonderful scene. Oh, do you know there's that man in the cafe he's pointing a gun at my back right now? But it's played very not seriously, basically.
Yeah.
It's not, he's got a gun. It's not, he's got a gun, how scary. It's, he's got a gun, what an idiot. That kind of thing, where it's how stupid you are to try and resolve this situation with a gun,
Right. Rather than pretending that these things don't exist, it's more of a critical examination of the use of guns and violence, which I think is a much healthier approach to that sort of thing in general than to pretend like, we just don't carry guns and everything's fine, or there's no violence. And like the story is sort of resolved by violence in a couple of ways, where Duggan,
literally Duggan whacks Scaroth.
Yeah, but also a vase gets chucked at Scaroth. as he's in the
and doesn't
thing.
Catherine Shell's character gets whacked over the head as well, doesn't she?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit of
but she gets whacked over the head because she's pointing a gun at them. So yeah, no, there is that stuff, but it's never gratuitous, and it's done. It's simultaneously dramatic and humorous at the same time, and the balance there is so delicate, but it's done so well.
It's a weird paradox, which is what Douglas Adams was best at writing. Is paradoxes that are satisfying to a reader, which is so bizarre, but true.
Yeah, but I would have loved if Duggan would have stuck around.
Absolutely.
I could see him as a companion for sure.
Definitely, yeah. And he feels like one of those characters. Maybe he does. I don't know, but he feels like he should have had his own Big Finish spin-off. I got Jago and Lightfoot sort of situation.
Never say never with that sort of thing.
I mean, it's sort of screaming out for more of that.
Yeah, no, I would have liked to have seen more of Duggan, because I find Duggan's job so fascinating as well. He says he's sent to Paris to figure out if anything juicy's going on in the art world. Like, that's his job.
So here's a question for you, Jack. Do you think that he is in any way sort of a prototype for a character who came along later called Dirk Gently? Ooh. As in Dirk Gently's holistic detective agency?
Very possibly. I've never read, or I don't know any Dirk Gently. I know it's about Douglas Adams' creation, but otherwise,
it is.
No,
he's a private eye.
Stepped into.
He's a private eye who wears trench coats, but he's not like hyper violent. If anything, he's constantly on the run from his creditors and things, and it's a very different thing. But I wonder if this was sort of like from the same genesis of like, let's take those kind of hard-boiled private eye stereotypes and kind of like turn them upside down in some creative way.
Yeah.
It feels like it's of that spirit. So
yeah, absolutely.
Perhaps a template for Dick Spanner.
Oh yes. Oh, there you go. Gosh, you're tying it back around in all sorts of different ways.
It's all connected. It's all connected, Jack.
Yeah. Oh, well. And then one more cast member that I had on my list of Anderson connections is Peter Halliday, who plays a soldier in part 2 and 3 of the story. And then he is also the uncredited voice of the second Jaggeroff in this story.
Right.
He played Dr. Siegel in the UFO episode Question of Priorities.
Wow.
Not necessarily a very memorable character, but I do love Peter Halliday. I love him in this, and I also love him. One of my favorite Doctor Who stories of all time is The Invasion, where he plays Packer. He's Packer, the underling to Tobias Vaughan. Fantastic character. But he does all sorts of Doctor Who guest spots that are always memorable, always good fun. Just a wonderful actor, always lights up the screen whenever he's on there. And he's wonderful in this as the slightly thick soldier that the Doctor knows how to manipulate, and yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah, the business with the Polaroid.
Yeah.
Inspired lunacy. Absolutely.
Yes, asking him to smile, and he's one of those people who does not know how to smile.
Brilliant.
Which is just an exaggerated version of so many people that you know in real life who also cannot pose properly for a photo. Just incapable of doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's one final connection between the Anderson world and the City of Death that I have to offer.
Right.
So this is a clear ripoff, one thing to another. That you're gonna see this and say, "Oh my goodness, how could they have done this?" So you see this this design here, this machine,
Yes.
the one that kills David Graham in an extraordinary performance. I think you'll agree. His slow twist is just horrifying in all the best ways. Notice anything familiar about this design?
Do I notice anything familiar? Admittedly, on my screen, it's quite small. I'm having to squint quite hard to see it. So I'm afraid you're going to have to enlighten me, and indeed enlighten our audio listeners as well.
Yes. Well, it's
what I'm looking at here.
It's the I forget what it's even called. He basically uses it as a time machine.
Right.
Effectively.
Right.
But it's an invention of David Graham's character. It has 3 pylons, I guess, with 3 sort of giant electrodes pointing in, and they have sort of a central rod surrounded by a blue set of rings, and then tipped with a red bit of conical perspex.
Okay.
I think that's fair to say. to say.
Yes.
Does that remind you of anything?
It has the flavor of Thunderbird 1 about it.
Yeah, there's a bit
Is that
of
what
Thunderbird
you're driving
1,
at?
but there's also a bit of, when I saw it, I couldn't help but think of this.
Oh, yes, a Thunderbird's pistol. Yes,
a Thunderbird's pistol with its red
one right here. Yeah,
conicalness and its blueness also.
Yes, I suppose so.
The most tenuous connection ever, but
that's a really tenuous connection.
I thought it might be so tedious that it would be amusing.
If you saw it, Ben, then fair enough. I'll let you have it.
Fair enough.
That's fine by me. Let me put my
Thank you for letting me have that.
Well, I do have one more connection that is maybe slightly stronger.
Than
that, which is Ian Scoons.
Scoons? How can I forget Ian Scoons? Right,
he did the visual effects for this story, or certainly he did the film sequence of the Jaggeroth spaceship taking off and blowing up.
Yeah.
And of course, he got his start in special effects, like so many people, on Thunderbirds, working with Derek Meddings.
Ian Scoons does some lovely work for Doctor Who, I think.
Yes. That's sort of where he arguably probably made more of a name for himself, was doing special effects for Doctor Who.
Yeah, sort of being the department supervisor, I guess, in the way that Derek Meddings was sort of supervisor on Thunderbirds.
Yeah. But that particularly on the Blu-ray of City of Death, it's a really good looking shot when the ship explodes. Looks really nice. Very well done.
It is lovely.
Yeah.
Very effective stuff.
Now, am I right in thinking Ian Scoons was the sort of first choice for effects director on Terrorhawks?
Yeah, so Ian Scoons, in addition to his work on Doctor Who, I think, Blake 7 as well. He was brought in to work on Terrorhawks and actually started, building models, doing work.
Right.
And was let go for some reason.
Fair enough.
Fred McNamara.
Steve Begg replaced him, and
Steve Begg ended up replacing him. And Steve, I think that was Steve's first entrance to the film industry.
Right. Yeah,
so
pretty
it
sure.
Would have been very
kind
much
of thrown
a
in at the deep end.
Very much so. But Gerry really admired his work and gave him a chance, as he did for so many people.
Yeah.
But Ian Scoons' work, it's sort of a subject of controversy even now, because you watch something like City of Death and you think, surely a person who could produce effects like that and who had the experience of working on Thunderbirds could have done something for Terrorhawks, you would think.
Yeah.
Fred McNamara dives into that in his book, Flaming Thunderbolts, which is a making of story behind Terrorhawks. And he goes into the ins and outs and the different opinions of people who worked. There's some technicians who worked with Ian on the early stuff, and then subsequently with Steve Begg on the rest of the show. And they give their opinions and their story of what happened there. So that's worth checking out if you can track down a copy of that book.
Fair enough. Yeah. Well, but I have to, City of Death, I think his work on that is very good. I like the Jaggeroth spaceship. I think that's a cool design. Even at the very beginning of the story, because you see the interior of the spaceship. I like all that stuff. I think that looks
They
really
put so
good.
much effort into that for just being in one shot, basically. Just that beginning sequence.
Yeah. No, it looks really nice.
Looks
And it's a
great.
very bold, dramatic opening for the story. And
Yeah.
it obviously contrasts so nicely with them then fading into the Paris in the spring with the blossoms on the trees. And lovely stuff. Yeah, I really enjoyed that whole mix there.
It's very nice.
Yeah. We love it.
Wow.
We love it. I think City of Death is I mean, where does it sit for you in terms of Doctor Who? Are there any is it your cup of tea, or is there maybe Doctor Who that you prefer more, or where does it sit for you?
If you've been listening to me at all, you know I like it. I grew up. I became a fan of Doctor Who prior to the new show when that started in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
And on American TV, Tom Baker was the most frequently broadcast and was the most widely available on video as well.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, other actors have played Doctor Who, but Tom Baker is the Doctor. I mean, he just... Other people do it and do a great job. I love David Tennant. I love Peter Davison. I love a bunch of the actors who have played the Doctor. Sylvester McCoy is another great shout. Paul McGann. So many great actors. Tom Baker is the part, though, to me.
Right.
So I love that. Douglas Adams, I think I said earlier, one of my favorite writers, if not my favorite writer ever.
Yeah.
So his work, just extraordinary. And this is one of his best outings on the show. So, yeah, great guest cast, well done all around, really strong story. If I had to make a criticism of it, I feel like some of the business in Paris goes on for too long. There's a bit of like waffle where it's like, okay, if you were going to cut down, you could easily trim some of that and not lose any story.
I think I saw an interview with Douglas Adams where he said that stuff was deliberately extended because the show was running short. But I like that, and it's indicative that was just what TV did at that time as well, of just filling space in a way with ambient stuff, just running around Paris. Like, yeah, let's just film more and more and more of it until we fill the running time. But it's harmless, isn't it? It's sort of like, as you say, it's like you could cut that stuff out, but I personally don't feel like it does any harm being there because the music and the pace of it is still carrying on well enough, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm alone in that feeling, but I like it being a bit, taking a gentler pace.
I like that too, and I like... There's a little subgenre called a hangout movie, which is where you characters just kind of like... There's usually a plot. The most famous example would be like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the Tarantino movie, where the characters are just kind of, there's a plot and there's a, it's kind of about, it's a revisionist take on the Manson murders that happened in Hollywood in the late 60s. But for most of the movie, that's not really what's going on. The characters are you're just kind of hanging out with the characters and getting to know who they are. Or like we've talked in this podcast about The Wages of Fear and how there's like an hour of that movie that's just, you're just with the characters in their environment. Yeah. And I think it's such a beautiful luxury as a storyteller to be able to do that, to just take your characters and stick them in Paris and be like, let's just see what they're like. See what they're like as they cross the street, as they sit down at a cafe, as they, run to and from the Louvre.
Yeah. But I think I could accept. See, the interesting thing there is that for when you mentioned those feature films, I'm kind of like, because it is a bit too long. I think the nice thing about TV is if they do take that gentler pace, it's still only for a half hour or so. So it's still, you still have to tell some sort of story in that space, but you can take a little bit more time over it. Whereas a feature film, if you have the first hour when nothing happens, then you do lose me, I have to say.
Right. Well, here's sort of a key question about Doctor Who for you. When you watch a serial, do you watch it all in one sitting, or do you watch the serials one by one?
Most of the time I watch it all in one go. And sometimes that's great.
I do too.
Sometimes that's great. Like in this case, I think it works. I think you can take it in smaller chunks, and indeed you probably should. But I enjoy that. It's interesting. I enjoy taking it all in one go when it's either a 4-parter or something ridiculous like a 10-part, like the War Games, which is 10 parts. Even the sort of loose cannon reconstruction of the Daleks' master plan, which is a missing story and mostly therefore told through still photographs and stuff like that, and it's 12 episodes long. But I'll take that all in one go.
Wow.
But when you come to something like when it gets to, I tell you, the Doctor Who I find a little bit dull is some of the 6-part John Pertwee stories.
I agree with you on that.
In those situations, there really doesn't feel like there's enough story there, and they fill the time with, I don't know, it's just not my cup of tea. It's just not the vibe that I like from my Doctor Who. But no, I do quite like a long, winding, protracted Doctor Who story. I do enjoy it. The Invasion, another one, 8 parts long.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Because I feel like when they have those really long stories, then they do kind of put the effort into, okay, we know we're telling a really long story here, so let's fill it with as much stuff as possible. I feel like something like the War Games could just keep going and going and going and going.
Yeah.
Because it's just, they keep expanding on the scale of the whole thing. Whereas some of the 6-part stories, it very much feels like this is a 4-part story that's been padded out. So, yeah. But City of Death, I think, is the perfect length at 4 parts. And a really good story for if you've only ever watched new Doctor Who. I say new Doctor Who, as in Doctor Who that started in 2005. City of Death is a great kind of jumping on point.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true.
Because it's just so appealing, and as we've said, sort of special effects wise, it's very acceptable. Maybe not the best thing you've ever seen on television, but by Doctor Who standards, it's all very solid. It looks great. Pace wise, it's very easy to follow. It does that great thing of, as I said, of being easy to follow, but also having complexity to it. It feels, this is what Douglas Adams does so well, of feeling very intelligent, but also being quite straightforward and
quite popcorn as well.
Yeah, exactly.
You never have to strain to get through it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you really don't have to work too hard to enjoy this story. It's just effortless. Yeah. It's just so nice. And, I enjoy things like the Doctor and Romana's kind of pairing. I think that works really nicely.
Oh, yeah.
We didn't even get into...
We haven't talked about Romana at all.
Yeah. Which is a shame, because, she's fantastic in this story. And that's the wonderful
Where does this fall in the whole Tom Baker, Lala Ward romance? Where does this fall?
Oh, this is when everything was going well. And I think that is very apparent on screen that they are enjoying each other's company, which the same could not be said later on.
Sure. Is this before they were married? I'm assuming.
Yes, this is before they were married. This this City of Death is Lala Ward's second. Well, I don't know where it falls in the production order, but it's her second story as Romana after Destiny of the Daleks. So
right, but she's in the Armageddon Factor.
Oh, of course, yes, she was in the Armageddon Factor the year before. Yeah. So but still very early days. So yes, the romance is blossoming. Tom and Lala are getting on very well. The chemistry is there.
Do you remember what year they actually got married?
I want to say 1980
or so. So it wouldn't have been too
I
long
think-
after this.
Yeah,
Maybe a year later,
yeah, exactly.
ish, give
So
or
yeah.
take.
Yeah, it's just really nice to watch. I
Yeah,
think.
they play along
She's
really
great in it.
well.
Yeah, she
Nice.
works so well as sort of the Doctor's equal. I think.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. just
I've
really nice.
always been partial to Romana 1, which is not a popular opinion.
Ah, okay.
But
Yeah. I like what Mary Tam does with it, but I think I
Yeah.
prefer what Lalla Ward's doing with it.
yeah, and I like
Just a bit more
what Lala
fun.
Ward does,
Yeah.
but I prefer what Mary Tam does. So it's one of those roles that it depends a lot on the writing too. Like if she's written to be the Doctor's equal, it helps a lot.
Right. Well, I think that's what Douglas Adams again does well.
Yep.
It just all comes back round to Douglas Adams, really, just being so good
It does.
at what he does.
What would Douglas Adams have done with the Supermarionation format? Do you think?
Oh,
Can you
I knew you were
imagine-
going to. I knew you were going to ask that question.
I always
unfortunately,
ask questions like that.
unfortunately, I don't have a good answer to that. But I mean, it would have been a great fit.
Yeah.
I think. I don't know whether him and. You know what? I would have liked to see Douglas Adams write for Space Precinct. I think that would have been a great fit.
Yeah.
Because
Some truly
particularly.
bonkers sci-fi.
And obviously, I'm talking about this because I'm in the midst of reviewing Space Precinct right now on my blog.
Yeah.
But one of the things that sticks out to me is there were only 2 British writers who worked on Space Precinct, and they were both comedy writers at their core. That's what their training was. That's their whole experience was in writing sketches and sitcoms.
Bonkers.
And funnily enough, that doesn't translate very well into Space Precinct,
Bonkers.
which was arguably trying to be more like something like Star Trek Next Generation or one of those types of shows where it's sci-fi, very serious drama, but for a family audience.
Yeah.
And
very
I
much
think
so.
Douglas Adams and that Hitchhiker's way of going about things could have worked with Space Precinct. I don't know if every episode would have been a hit, but there would have been at least one really good Douglas Adams Space Precinct episode, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He definitely could have written some very funny, like year 2 episodes. An episode like The Tabor, where the Alphans meet a space trader. Feels like a Douglas Adams sort of concept.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I could have seen him doing something like that. Or, you know, I think he could have done really well with something like the Secret Service. Because he used to write for Monty Python and do like really weird, far out there gags. And I think he would have responded well to the idea of having the puppets interact with the real world in some way.
Yes.
I think he would have.
That's the
had
thing.
a lot of fun with that.
I think possibly with Supermarionation, with Supermarionation proper, like something like Stingray or Thunderbirds, it was kind of important to take that world completely seriously, and whereas I think Douglas Adams would have constantly been trying to subvert it because that's what he did so well.
That's what he does.
But in Supermarionation, where the world is just so very neat and tidy and like you know, has to be kind of picture perfect the whole time. I think as soon as you sort of start to question that reality, there would have been problems. But something like the Secret Service, where the whole thing is questioning reality, really, that would have been a better fit. Yeah.
Or something like
sure.
Tom Thumb Tempest, or one of those episodes where it's sort of dreamy, or any of those weirder ones that might have worked.
Yeah.
Any of the stranger UFOs, like a mind bender or a time lash.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, that would have worked really nicely. Yeah, but we never got a Gerry Anderson Douglas Adams collaboration. Okay, well let's pivot that. If Gerry Anderson had been handed the keys to make a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy feature film, what would that have looked like?
Oh man, I can't, because that would have been the late 70s, early 80s,
right?
That he would have done that if that had happened.
If that
Probably.
had happened. Or, I mean, obviously the Hitchhiker's feature film was 2005.
Right. So if he had done that instead of New Captain Scarlet.
Yeah. If
Wow.
somehow that is how that had worked out,
that is a brain melter.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what that would look like.
I don't know whether Gerry's sense of humor would have aligned with Douglas Adams. Do you know what I mean?
We're talking about a guy who thought Stanley Unwin was so funny that he deserved his own show.
Yeah.
Versus the guy who used to write skits for Monty Python.
Yes.
It's like,
although, as Iron Crew just pointed out in the chat, that Dick Spanner actually could have been maybe along those
good
lines.
Point,
as well,
Iron Crew.
It's kind of subversive and
yeah.
Maybe that's the fit. But yeah, no, I also cannot really imagine a Gerry Anderson's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't see that.
Very interesting to imagine, though. Very interesting to imagine.
Yes, absolutely. Have you enjoyed doing a Doctor Who themed podcast, Ben? Do you think we should do some more?
I have. I think we should probably just switch to Doctor Who, since they're, the thing is, there's so many Gerry Anderson podcasts, and there's so few Doctor Who ones.
Oh,
it seems a shame to go on doing.
Yeah, there's so few Doctor Who podcasts. Isn't it weird? I feel like no one on the internet really talks about Doctor Who ever.
No.
It's really unfortunate. I don't think there are any bearded white men who sit on the internet in front of their microphones talking about Doctor Who. I hardly ever see that.
Underexploited niche.
Yeah,
in the podcast space. So we definitely should switch over and be a full-time Doctor Who podcast, I think.
Yeah. Or we could just, stick with what we know and love. Well, I mean, we love Doctor Who, but I think standard service maybe needs to resume. We might come back to Doctor Who sometime, though, if we happen to find a link. I think it's fair to say, I've got to say, doing City of Death, I found more Gerry Anderson connections in there than I thought I was going to find.
Oh, yeah. Well, like my Thunderbird's gun connection, for example. Huge connection.
Yeah, of course. Oh, yeah. That was pivotal. That was so important to the whole thing.
Changed everything.
Yeah. Well, anyway, normally we are a Gerry Anderson podcast, and indeed we broadcast live on YouTube every single Wednesday at 6 p.m. UK time, youtube.com/Jack Knoll. But you can also listen to us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all of those audio platforms as well. Give us a rate and review. Let us know how you think we did. And hopefully help us find a few more listeners. Definitely share this podcast if you enjoyed it, because we just want to reach more Gerry Anderson and I guess Doctor Who fans as well.
Yeah, and if you just can't get enough of me and Jack, then you should check out our Patreon. We have patreon.com/securityhazard where you can find all kinds of extra stuff. Jack is working on some Lego projects there, which are very exciting. Lego the Mole. I've got an excerpt from this book read by me. Very exciting. So head on over there, give what you can, but only if you can, we like to say. And then in exchange for that, we give you the gift of exclusive videos and commentaries that you won't see anywhere else. So thank you to our patrons and to all of you for watching and supporting the show. We very much appreciate it.
We very much do. And if there's anything else you need, head over to securityhazard.net. That's where you can find blog posts, videos, podcasts, and of course all of my social media links. Ben, where can people find you?
Well, you can find all of my stuff at benwolf.page. That's benwolf.page, and that'll link you to my socials, to my YouTube channel, to my Starfleet blog, and all of that jazz.
Lovely Starfleet stuff.
There, benwolf.page.
Well, that's it. Yep, we love it very much. And who knows? Maybe we'll be back with more Doctor Who some point in the future. Who knows? Who knows? No, I can take the scarf off now. Honestly, it's like 30 degrees outside, and I'm wearing.
What are you doing? Now you know how they felt when they filmed on location.
Oh, must have been a nightmare. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. We will see you next time. Bye bye, Duggan.